Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. Today we're going to talk about Iron Man from 2008, directed by Jon Favreau, starring Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Terrence Howard, Jeff Bridges, Jon Favreau. Written by Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, who has a cool name, Art Markham, and Matt Holloway. One of the other actors that I would point out is Faran Tahir, I think is probably how you say his name. But he is kind of the leader of the bad guys, who was a Star Trek captain in the J.J. Abrams reboot.
Oh, you're right. That's right. He was captain of
the Kelvin, USS Kelvin, right?
Right. That was Kirk's dad's ship?
Yeah, it's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and throw this out there about him because it's perfect too now since you mentioned him. And that way it won't get in the way of other things. When he walks out, and is like introduced from behind all the thugs for the first time, the music that they play for him sounds very similar to the music for Shredder from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So go back and listen to it, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I will. I really enjoy the music in this movie, though. I think each Iron Man movie has a different composer, which is interesting. So, like, each Iron Man movie kind of has a different theme. But I really enjoy this one. It's very simple, but effective, I think. And so I actually really enjoy the music in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say he has a theme so much as it just sounds like metal. Like it's a thick music.
It's because of the use of the guitars,
right? And since Iron Man is made of iron, so to speak, it fits really well with his character. So yeah, I agree. And I don't really think about his music like I do with the Spider-Man movies, but sometimes that's really beneficial because it just fits the scene so perfectly.
It's not distracting.
Right. Well, yeah. It's
a little in your face in this movie, but it works. It's just kind of a cool theme. It's very, like I said, it's very simple, but it's like when he's putting on the Mark II and the camera's kind of going around him right before he goes on his very first flight where he gets iced up and falls. It's just kind of that, that rock theme that you were just saying, and it really works really well with Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark style, and it works well with the suit, and it looks cool, and I liked it. It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the music from Iron Man 2, but the music in Iron Man 3 was good. I remember that.
Well,
so I didn't take very many notes for this movie.
I did, actually. But,
good.
But there are more questions for you. Because you've read some of the Iron Man comics, right?
Not really, no.
I thought you had. Well, I'm sure there's a few things about the movie that I have questions about that you probably...
I might know the answer to them just because when a movie comes out, I like to kind of like research a little bit about the character,
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit. But no, I was actually gonna. Well, I'll tell you because like for Spider-Man and Batman, like we gave like these kind of long intros about how we remember Spider-Man and Batman as a kid,
right?
And for this one, I'm going to be like, I never read any Iron Man, never watched any cartoon shows, so.
I think I might have watched a couple episodes of an Iron Man cartoon that came out like a few years after. Yeah, it was like a couple years after Spider-Man.
I think,
but so. I only watched like 2 episodes. I
actually have it on DVD now because like when the Avengers came out, we started selling it at the Blockbuster I was working at.
Yeah,
so I got it for like probably $10 or something. But I haven't really watched it. And that was another one that was on Netflix for a while, but they took it down.
Yeah, and I always meant to watch it, but I never did. But yeah, I think the one thing I knew about Tony Stark was that he had a suit of armor that could shoot things out of it, and he had a mustache.
Yeah. I knew he was an alcoholic, too.
Well, I had no idea about that. I didn't even know that now, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, there was a storyline in the comics called Demon in a Bottle or something like that, and it was about him like overcoming his alcoholism. And so they allude to it a lot in the movies with him drinking, and
so that came out before the movies.
Yeah. But it's something that Marvel has said they're probably not going to cover in the movies because it seems like it's too heavy of a subject, I guess. For like kind of, I mean, they're not really considered kids movies, but I don't know. They said they're probably not going to do it in the movies. But he drinks like all the time in the movies, and he's like drunk a lot in Iron Man 2.
Well, I was going to say, and I've only seen half of it, but wasn't he going through that like heavily in Iron Man 3?
With the drinking?
Yeah.
Maybe. He would, in Iron Man 3, he was dealing more with kind of almost post-traumatic stress because of the Avengers and what happened in the Avengers. And so he might have been drinking in the movie to kind of handle
gotcha.
it.
You know, and I think that might be their way of addressing the same kind of idea of what alcoholism is.
Right.
Because you can kind of do that with stress disorder. You're waking up from night, you're depressed, blah, blah, blah. So maybe that's how they're kind of... But I remember seeing the trailer thinking that it had to do with alcohol, so I think they're kind of pushing that at least. It's kind of the same realm. But
it's never said... no one ever comes out and says, like, you're this way because you're an alcoholic. And he's never like, I need to quit the booze, like it's just never really addressed directly.
So, how excited were you about this movie? Like, seeing the trailers and stuff before it came out.
Not super excited. The main reason is I really didn't care a whole lot about Iron Man. I knew who he was. I never read the comics. I guess because I never gave him a chance, I never cared too much about him. And the first teaser trailer I saw of Iron Man, I thought it didn't look very good. I thought it was going to be cheesy. It was about 5 years after Daredevil came out, but for some reason, when I first saw the very first preview, Daredevil popped in my head, and I was like, this is not going to be very good. And then I think once the second trailer came out, then I started to maybe get a little bit more interested. And actually, the reason I went to go see it, it wasn't a midnight showing, but maybe like the opening night, was because not for Iron Man so much, but because they were showing another Dark Knight preview before it. And so I was actually more excited about seeing the new Dark Knight preview than I was Iron Man. But then Iron Man ended up being really good.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed it.
I had a similar experience because I think I was, from listening to you, I think I was maybe a little more excited, but I wasn't like... I was really on the fence about it. It looked like it could be good, but I was like, how good can Iron Man be? And I went to go see it, and I was like, throughout the whole movie, I was just like, man, I am really enjoying this movie, and it never really died. Except for a small thing, which is a forgivable sin for me, but we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah, I mean, Jon Favreau did a great job with this movie. It's very entertaining. It's probably the best out of the 3 Iron Man movies. But that being said, one of the notes I wrote was there's not a lot of Iron Man in this movie, which is funny because in Iron Man 3, there's not a lot of Iron Man in that movie either. It takes a long time before he puts on that suit. I mean, I think Mark 1 happens around the 40-minute mark, and then...
Right. Yeah, you're
Mark
right.
2 is probably an hour into the movie. And so Mark 3, the red and yellow, like the actual Iron Man suit, probably doesn't happen until like an hour and 20 into the movie or something. So it takes a long time to get to Iron Man, but it tells a good story, and the story is interesting, and so
right. Yeah, I felt like this had a little bit of ties to the Raimi Spider-Man movies. But I put down that I feel like this was kind of the bridge that took us from the Spider-Man style and kind of mixed it with and bridging us into what we have today.
What do you mean by the Spider-Man style?
More of the campy, safe style of filming that was going on with superhero movies.
And you think this one is the one that pushed it more so than like the Batman films?
Yes and no, because the Batman films, of course. But the thing that I'm doing that changes that is I kind of take the Batman films almost out of the comic book movies. It's weird because they're so grounded in reality.
Right.
And this one I feel is more like the Marvel style, fun superhero movie, if that makes sense. And as far as that goes, yes, Batman changed everything as far as the darkness goes and the seriousness.
And the realistic tone.
Right. But I felt like this took us from, well, now you've got me at a corner, so I'm going to stop there. I have to think about it some more.
I think it's really good because it is set in kind of a real world, but at the same time, it's very much a comic book world. Mm-hmm. And it's actually something I would like to see in future Batman movies is, Iron Man in these movies, or Tony Stark, I should say, has a lot of these gadgets that he builds himself, very much like Bruce Wayne in Batman.
Right.
And we've gotten away from that in the Batman films. They've tried to make the Batman movies so realistic that each thing has to have kind of almost has to be grounded in reality. Like, if this gadget doesn't really exist, then we don't want to use it in the movie type of thing. Which is fine for the Nolan films. It's great. But I would like to see a Batman that's not personality-wise, but a little bit more like Tony Stark, or more like Iron Man.
Right.
Where he has these different types of gadgets and weapons or whatever that maybe are a little absurd and wouldn't exist in the real world.
Right.
But totally work in a Batman movie. But not so much that it's like, get me the bat repellent or the shark repellent from the Batcopter.
That's what I wanted. Was the shark repellent?
The shark repellent?
He's got to have that stuff. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I get what you're saying totally. And hopefully we'll get that with this new Batman Superman movie.
I hope so. I think that'd be cool.
And speaking of which, well, no, this is about Iron Man. Let's keep it at Iron Man because I was going to go way off. Well, I'll go ahead. I wanted, and I still want, because apparently it's not official. I don't know. Who knows if it's official or not? But the picture of Affleck's costume, the drawing of it, did that ever turn out to be real or fake?
It was. Well, if you're talking about the one I'm thinking of, it was fake.
It was a while ago.
Comic book artist. It was a comic book artist just kind of doing, what he thought would be cool.
I got you.
But the reason that stuck out to me as being fake is because the bat signal behind the image of him was from the Dark Knight series.
Right, that was mentioned to me.
It's not. It wasn't in the. It's not the new one. I actually don't like that suit. It's too much like the Dark Knight suit, and I don't like the gold bat symbol across the chest.
I want as much as they could get it wrong. I think if they get it right, it would be amazing. Is the gray and blue? That's what I want to see. So and almost the blue where it's almost like a black, but it's blue. That would be awesome.
I think that would be cool. I have a feeling it'll just be another black rubber suit. But.
Right. And talking about the Batman '89 when we did that podcast, I remember mentioning that we'd probably never see a different black Batman suit in a Batman movie. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see the gray one. So,
right.
Anyway, you want to get back to Iron Man?
All right, back to Iron Man. So what do you think about Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark?
I thought he was awesome. But I think rewatching it this time, I don't even think I had given him that much credit as much as I did this time. I was like, wow, he really played the part. And I'm wondering if maybe going and seeing his performance in Iron Man 2, part of his performance in Iron Man 3, and the Avengers has kind of changed the way I look at Tony Stark. Like, he's evolved as a character. Right. And just going back and watching how Tony Stark was in the beginning, I was just like, this is great. He did really well.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought he did a great job. I remember when I heard that he was cast as Tony Stark, I didn't really care. Because, again, I didn't really know a whole lot about Iron Man, so I was like, okay. Give him a mustache, and I'm sure it'll be great. And then, like, the first image that they posted, which was him, I think it was Jeff Bridges, Gwyneth Paltrow, and maybe Terrence Howard. I was like, and then he had the goatee. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was like, he actually looks pretty good. Looks like Tony Stark, you know? And then once I saw the movie, and I knew he was a good actor, like I had seen other movies of his in the past. But once I saw the movie, I was like, I'm not really sure how close his Tony Stark is to the Tony Stark of the comics.
Right, and I don't
because
either.
I haven't really read the comics. Yeah. But from what I understand, I think Tony Stark is sort of kind of a millionaire playboy or billionaire playboy type, you know? So he really did a great job with the character. Right. I mean, I can't... he embodied that so well. Like it seems to me like Robert Downey Jr. really, he might be egotistical. Who knows? Never met the guy, but he seems very confident, and it's something that you need like Tony Stark to be. He did a great job with it, and it's another role like the Wolverine, where I just can't imagine anybody else playing him now. And I know one day they're going to probably just like they always do, they'll reboot Iron Man. And so one day we're going to get a different Tony Stark, just like one day we'll probably get another Wolverine. But
yeah, they'll definitely.
I just can't imagine who else it could be. Like he is Tony Stark. Yeah.
They'll definitely reboot Iron Man one day, which is odd to think about because when we were talking about the trailer and how excited, I never expected Iron Man to become what it did. No, I remember hearing, like, for the first time on the radio that it was doing really well, and I was like, that's shocking. I was like, no one, most of these people that are giving this movie its money had no idea that the character even existed before this movie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it was really cool. I was like, it was kind of we had kind of had a comic book movie boom,
mm-hmm.
but I think after Iron Man, we got an even bigger one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there had been a comic book movie boom, but not all of them had been very good. We had, Spider-Man in 2002, and then Daredevil in 2003, Hulk in 2003. Both of those were not very good. We had X-Men 2 in 2004, which was awesome. And then Batman Begins was really good in 2005. And then somewhere in there, I think, was Fantastic Four Part 1.
Right.
Which... it did well enough to get a sequel, but is not really that great.
Really?
Yeah, Iron Man really... What?
Interesting. Well, we need to have a Fantastic Four podcast soon.
It's not as good as it could be.
Perhaps.
Maybe
I agree with that.
But Iron Man really, did... I mean, it was really kind of another comic book movie boom for Marvel, mostly. And... it was the beginning of their Avengers phase. I mean, this movie, not to jump all the way to the end, but the post-credit scene in this movie had Nick Fury coming out saying, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative, which just blew everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they were even talking about trying to do an Avengers movie. I mean, there had been talk to do Batman versus Superman for years. And... they even tried to do a Justice League movie before Marvel got around to doing Avengers. But the fact that it was nothing ever got past the script phase, I think, for a lot of these movies. Or at least there was never any casting to the point where, we never saw any pictures. This was all just talk.
Right.
And the fact that they had made Iron Man, Nick Fury shows up and says, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers. That was huge.
Not only that, but... there was a transition of the styling of Nick Fury in the comics,
which actually happened a long time ago.
How long ago was that?
It was years before Iron Man the movie came
out. Right. But was it a decade, two?
Whenever the Ultimates came out, I think. So no, it wasn't. I mean, I would say it was probably early 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003 type of.
Yeah, I mean, this came out in 2008. Was it 8?
Yeah.
So I don't give that much time. I think that it's kind of cool that he got drawn as Samuel L. Jackson.
And I've heard that Samuel Jackson allowed them to do that. Like, he gave him his likeness rights or whatever on the grounds that if they ever put Nick Fury in a movie, he plays Nick Fury.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well.
Worked
anyway,
out
I think it's pretty cool that he got drawn like that, and then Samuel L. Jackson, of course, gets to play him in the movies. That's cool,
right? Yeah, very cool.
So, but yeah, that's. Now I feel like we finished the podcast. It's like we're at the end of the movie,
right?
So I had to deal with a lot of things with my kids while I was trying to start this movie, putting them to bed and everything. So I missed a couple scenes, and I liked how they opened it. You're driving out in the desert, AC/DC music playing, and then throw a couple jokes, and right in the middle of like their third one, there's like a firefight.
Right.
Love that. So, but and then it goes back and shows Stark before he goes on the trip.
Yeah, it jumps back to 3 weeks earlier or 36 hours earlier or something like that, and he's in Vegas, and they're supposed to be presenting him with an award, which is one of the things that I thought was great. And I said this film does a great job in setting up who Tony Stark is, like the whole award presentation and showing us his life through this presentation video. I thought was really smart, rather than I don't think they would have ever done this, but like characters being like, well, you remember when Tony was 14 and he built his own engine or something, like that would have been terrible.
Right.
So I thought it was really well done, and I thought it was a really great way to show us that he's really super smart. And then in that same scene, they also show us just how much of a partier playboy he is, because he's not there to accept the award. And Jeff Bridges' character says, the best thing about Tony Stark is also the worst thing. He's always working. And then it cuts to him, and he's playing craps in the casino. And so it was like really well done how they set up his character from the beginning of the movie,
right.
Like just from
and
the start.
And that's just good movie making right there. And that's another thing about Iron Man is this movie was just kind of like the Batman movies. This was just a good movie. It didn't matter. I mean, of course, you got the iron suit and everything, but it was just a good movie.
Right.
So when does it get back to where they're actually in the desert again?
That after his Vegas trip, he is back home in Malibu, and he's late for his flight, which is supposed to take him to this desert area so he can do a weapons presentation to the military. And then after the presentation is when he's like riding in the convoy back to the airbase, and that's when the attack happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, it said, I think it was pretty sure it was 36 hours earlier he was in Vegas, so it's not, it was just like a couple of days before before he's in the desert and before he gets captured.
So the attack happens, and then he gets hurt pretty badly, and then the next thing you know, you see him waking up sporadically in a dark cave, and he has the heart core. What's it called?
Well, it's an arc reactor once he makes it, but at first it's just a electromagnet hooked up to a car battery.
Right. And this guy made it. That's in there with him. That's a prisoner.
Yeah.
As well.
Yinsen.
And this is where I was going. So I'm trying to remember why he needed it in the first place and how this guy made it.
They don't really explain how they made it. It's an electromagnet, so I don't know if he made it or if he just had it. I don't know. But the reason that he needs it is because there's the weapon that he got hit with has these like shrapnel barbs that kind of can make your way through your body or get into your bloodstream or something. And so it can actually kill you over the course of a long period of time. And so the electromagnet is keeping the shrapnel from moving and entering his heart. So if he ever took it out, the shrapnel would move slowly, but it would move and eventually get into his heart and kill him.
Why can't he remove that himself, though?
I'm guessing it's either dangerous or too close to his heart, maybe, to do. I don't know.
Okay.
Because he wouldn't be Iron Man without it.
Right. He needs it to power his suit. That's why he wears it.
Right.
Okay, well that was one of my major questions about as far as I don't think I missed any more scenes, if I'm not mistaken. So
probably not. I mean, if you came back and he was still in the cave, there's discussion. Basically, the reason that he got kidnapped was because they want him to build him. He presents a Jericho missile in the beginning of the movie. That the weapons presentation in the desert,
right?
He's presenting them with a Jericho missile, is what they call it.
Right.
And once he gets captured, those rebels want him to build them a Jericho missile.
Right.
And he says he will. And they say, if you build it, we'll let you go. And he's like, no, you won't. So he knows that even if he builds this Jericho missile, he's going to be dead anyway. And so that's when he decides he's going to build something to escape.
Right. Yeah. And that's something else that I was wondering is, was this scene, like, we know that Tony Stark, owns the company, has all this high-tech stuff and everything. Did we know that he was capable of building this stuff before that scene?
Yes, because of the awards ceremony video. He built his first computer
that's right.
at age 3
right.
and his first engine at age 4 or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was cool, though, because that's the scene where you get to see him just take stuff from, materials that are available in a cave and just go to town on it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's another great example right there of showing who Tony Stark is.
Right.
I wanted to mention that the game that they're playing, like when it cuts back to him, and they're playing a game that's Backgammon. I love that game. So anyone out there that has not played Backgammon, give it a shot. It's cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Never played Backgammon.
Really? It's fun.
I know of the game, and I remember I used to have a Backgammon set, but no, I never played it. I don't know how to play it.
I forced myself.
But James Bond played a Backgammon, played Backgammon in Octopussy, I believe.
Like at a casino?
Yeah.
Nice. Actually, I didn't know that they played Backgammon in casinos. But
I don't know if they do, but they played it in that movie.
Yeah, I just sat down one day and forced myself to learn how to play it, and it's really easy and it's fun. So after they play Backgammon, you eventually get to see the finished version of his
Mark I
of his suit. Yes, his Mark I. And
I love that they did that because that Mark I suit is obviously a nod to the first appearance of Iron Man.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, when Iron Man was originally created, that's what his suit looked like. It was very big and bulky. It was all, it was silver, I guess, but it was all metallic looking like that. And it had the mask and everything looked exactly like that. So I thought it was really cool that they were able to put that into the movie and have it make sense and also be kind of a nod to the original comics.
I can't believe I never saw that. But you just now saying that, yeah. Right when I knew where you were going with that, I was like, holy cow, I totally forgot about that Iron Man. The original one that you're talking about. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That makes it even cooler. I never picked up on that. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it's obvious. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But also, I was going to mention another thing that I think that's cool that they did that was kind of what I failed to mention in our last podcast about Spider-Man, and you brought up how the drawing. You thought they should have shown that later because he didn't wear the suit, but I thought that was brilliant, which they kind of did here too. In that when you saw the finished picture of Spider-Man, and then they've got him behind the curtain, you know, like for the ring match, and you're waiting for them to pull the curtain up and see the Spider-Man outfit because you just saw a finished picture of it, and then it becomes, you know, what he wore, the stupid costume,
right,
and
sweatshirt and ski mask,
and that just made you want to see it even more.
Well, that's true. That makes
so
sense,
the next time that you saw Spider-Man swinging through the city in his actual suit, that's when you were flying on top of the world with him. Right. But with this too, I think it's cool because, especially the people that knew what he was going to become, it was kind of like you don't get to see Iron Man yet. This is the teaser, and then he builds the awesome suit coming up, and you've got to wait for that. Right. So I really liked how they did that.
Yeah, it works really well. It was really smart, and that scene is, it's filled with action, and it's also funny when he flies away, and then it immediately craps out on him, and he falls to the earth. There's a lot of humor in this movie, and it works really well. It's not too much, It's not campy. It's not.
Well, I noticed that people a lot of times mention that there's too much humor or whatever. It's not about necessarily the amount as much as the content you choose. Right. And because there was a lot of comedy in this Iron Man, but it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't in your face. Like, don't forget to laugh.
Right.
This was just good humor. And
a lot of the humor is from Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, too, whether it was scripted or improv.
Right.
A lot of it is in his delivery of certain lines and things like that.
Right. He's a great actor. So
when he gets rescued from the desert, Rhodey finds him. And he gets off the plane. He immediately calls for a press conference. One of the things I noticed, which is not important at all, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, is he wants an American cheeseburger, and he wants to have a press conference. And so they go to Burger King, and he gets a cheeseburger. And when Obadiah Stan, played by Jeff Bridges, sees him, he's like, "Oh, cheeseburgers, can I have one of those?" And he goes, "Nope, this is my last one. Sorry, pal." He's like, "I need it." And it shows them walking into the building, and he's finishing the burger. He's putting the last bite into his mouth. And then he gets to the podium, and he asks everybody to sit down on the floor.
Oh, right.
They all sit down. They all sit down on the floor. And then he pulls out another cheeseburger. So he totally just lied to Obadiah Stan.
I did not notice that. That's amazing. That's great. 3 cheeseburgers too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's.
At the press conference, he makes the announcement that Stark Industries is no longer going to make weapons.
Oh, right.
And he's like shutting down the weapons department, which causes a huge uproar. That's essentially what Stark Industries is a weapons manufacturer. Yeah. So, a lot of people think that he's going through post-traumatic stress or whatever from being captured, and kind of want to push him to the side. And so I think Obadiah Stan, even tells him to lay low for a while, and that's when he starts tinkering in his basement with making a new suit. And I think he even says to himself, I don't know. This might be something, because I don't think when he originally made the suit, it was going to have weapons. I think it was just to maybe fly around or something. And it wasn't until later that he kind of added weapons. I could be wrong about that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he had the intention of being a superhero when he first made it. And it really wasn't until later when he found out about those same rebel/terrorists, whatever you want to call them, attacking that town of Gulmira, that he finally decided to fly out there and do something about it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I never really put much thought into that, but yeah, I think you're right. Because that's when he was kind of like, the reason this is happening is because of me. Right. And I need to go over there and stop what I did. Mm-hmm. Which I wrote down a note about that. Apparently, Iron Man's totally cool with killing people. Because he's just doing it left and right in that camp.
Well, that's very true.
I mean, he like.
Well, in the cave, it kind of makes sense because they're going to kill him, and so he's got to do anything to get out. But
well, this was when he goes to
the town to save those people.
he's like
of
blowing up rockets and
He's
stuff.
blowing people up left and right. Yeah, yeah.
And there's like people running, and he shoots like 5 guys, unless they were tranquilizer darts. But aside from that, those other guys, they got toasted. So
Yep.
I wonder why the rule applies to Spider-Man, but a guy in a suit,
But not to
a
Iron
guy
Man.
in a mechanical suit, it's okay. So another scene that I don't remember, and maybe I just spaced out every single time I watched the movie and never saw this scene,
Right.
which I'm thinking is what happened because I asked Jordan about it and she said that it was in the movie, is when Pepper has to replace the core.
Yeah.
This was my first time seeing that. And
Maybe you went up and used the bathroom every time.
I think I've seen this movie. I thought I had seen this movie probably around 5 times.
And this is the first time
I
you saw
remember
that
seeing
scene?
that scene. And it's a long scene, too. I was like, oh, this is going to be a second. I was like, how did I not remember ever seeing that? Because that seems weird with the goop.
Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah,
gets your
yeah.
attention, so I don't know how I never...
It's another important scene, too. Did you wonder then, like later on in the movie, when he has to... Because he tells her to burn it, to incinerate it, get rid of it, and she ends up putting it into a glass box and giving it to him as a present. And it says proof that Tony Stark has a heart. That was his original arc.
Right.
Did you were you wondering, and were like, where did that come from later?
No, now that you mention it, I remember that there were 2. So
Right.
I guess I just never really paid attention to the fact that she was reaching into his chest, came out with goo. I don't know why. I must have just been thinking about what she was doing as opposed to actually watching. I don't know. But it was really weird to watch this time. But I liked it. It was cool. They did a good job. The slime kind of reminded me of Ghostbusters. I remember, like, as a kid thinking, that's disgusting. It's ghost goo. As if, as if it was real. Anyway.
A lot of humor in that scene as well.
Right.
After the Gulmira scene, that actually goes into one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is when he's flying home and they send the fighter jets out to, shoot down this bogey or whatever. Because they're all wondering who just blew up this weapons depot in Gulmira and took out these guys. And, it's no military, so it must be civilian. And even Rhodey thinks it's Tony Stark, but doesn't know that it's actually Tony Stark in a suit. He thinks it's just a weapon. And so the fighter jets are starting to try to shoot Iron Man down. And I think that whole flying sequence is a lot of fun and really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And very entertaining. And then it's such a great reveal, too. We know it's him. But when Rhodey finds out, he calls Rhodey back and he's like, it's me. And he's like, I knew it was you. He goes, no. I mean, it's actually me in a suit.
Right. Another example of a moment where humor could ruin the scene, but it just makes the scene. It's just great writing. One of the big bonuses for this movie was definitely the writing. That's something, when he starts flying around too, and that I love about the Iron Man movies are, it kind of reminds me of an upgraded version of The Rocketeer, as far as movies go.
Yeah, totally.
And one of the cool things that they did with Iron Man, and I don't think you could have done it with Rocketeer, but because he has all that technology in his helmet, you get a close-up of Tony Stark's face while he's in the suit, and you have all the computer holographic stuff around him, and that first of all lets you get into the suit with Tony and see his emotions and reactions to what's going on. But it also identifies him to you as Iron Man, which with Spider-Man, you've got Peter Parker and you've got Spider-Man. This is one of those superheroes where, and it's because of the way they did it in the movie, Tony Stark and Iron Man are one.
Right.
Which is really cool. And I think that brings up his ability as a character to connect with the audience, up an entire degree.
I think that's that's even like elevated by the fact that at the very end of the movie, he has this choice to have a secret identity and not let everybody know that he's Iron Man, or let everybody know, and he decides, hey, you know what? I am Iron Man.
Right.
And it's the first movie that I can think of where the superhero character, everybody know. Well, maybe not, because Fantastic Four, everybody knows who Fantastic Four is. But
they never really tried to conceal themselves. I mean,
No, they didn't.
Iron Man was concealed for a little bit. He had the opportunity to keep his secret identity, and I'm not sure, but I'm just basing this off of a cartoon episode I watched. But I think that in the comics, Tony Stark kept a secret identity. Like, people didn't know who Iron Man was. So I think that was something they maybe changed for the movie. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I was going to say, regardless, the best thing about that part was not only the fact that he did it and the reaction that they showed at the end, but then it goes straight to the credits.
Right.
And
it's the very end of
I
the movie.
loved the way they did that. At first I think it was almost hard, like hitting a brick wall. Like, what? But then you're like, no, that was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, this movie just has like a lot of great moments like that. I love Jeff Bridges. The Big Lebowski, the dude. How can you not?
Oh, man. Yes, we need to do a podcast on that, too. I saw that not too long ago for the first time. Blew me away.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of the few movies that I give 10 out of 10 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Big Lebowski is awesome. I love The Big Lebowski. But, I mean, Jeff Bridges, now an Academy Award winner, was an Academy Award nominee when this movie came out. But I just thought he was great as Obadiah Stan. He has a very cool, menacing look to him, too. The bald head with the big beard.
Yeah.
And it has kind of almost a Shakespearean quality to it, He's the father figure. Once his father died, he ran the company until Tony Stark was old enough. It's pretty much like I would say it's, an uncle. He probably sees Obadiah Stane very much as an uncle figure, if not a father figure, and then to be betrayed by him,
That's one thing that I always had not a very big understanding of about the connection of him and Tony Stark. So I don't know if I got that vibe. So I mean, I kind of got more of like best friends or older brother kind of thing, maybe.
Okay.
But were they both co-owners, or was he just the owner?
Tony Stark. I mean, I think Tony Stark's parents died when he was like a teenager.
Uh-huh.
And I think Obadiah Stane, if I'm remembering the video from the beginning of the movie right, Obadiah Stane ran the company until Tony Stark was 21, and then when Tony Stark was 21, he became CEO or whatever of Stark Industries.
Okay.
And so I would say Obadiah Stane would be like the number 2 man for Stark Industries. But he was probably the number 2 man below Tony Stark. Or, I'm sorry, between Tony Stark's dad. So I'm assuming Tony probably knew Obadiah Stane ever since he was a kid.
Right. So as you mentioned, he gets betrayed by him. He puts out a hit on Tony Stark.
Yeah, those rebels in the beginning of the movie were not supposed to just capture him. They were supposed to kill him.
Right. And you find that out later with a statement he makes. He says, whatever he says. We wouldn't be having this problem if you'd killed him.
Right.
So that gives that away. And and what was the reason for him wanting to kill Tony?
I think he wanted control of the company back.
Mm-hmm. Was it? But he was doing under the table dealing.
Yeah, he was the one providing all the weapons to these rebels and everything.
Right. So was this just a weapon manufacturer, evil guy wants to rule the world with his weapons kind of scenario?
Probably.
Okay. So there was nothing deeper than that with Obadiah. I'm
guessing. Now I'm speculating. But it seems to me,
I'm just
especially
talking
throughout
about
the course
from your point of view.
Okay, so what I kind of get from it is that was the original plan. He wants Tony Stark out of the way so he can have control of the company so that he can be this great weapons titan. You know?
Right.
And he could pretty much kind of do whatever he kind of wants. I mean, granted, there's a board with the company and everything, but... You know,
right. Okay.
He just wants Tony out of the way. So, but I also think that he's so jealous of Tony Stark and his ability to just create and be a genius so easily. That's another reason that he hates him so much. At least that's what I kind of got from the movie. Especially when Tony Stark comes back, he's got this miniaturized arc reactor in his chest. And then what does Obadiah Stan do? He gets like the best engineers he can find to try to build a miniaturized arc reactor.
Right.
And they tell him, they're like, the technology doesn't exist. And he's like, of course it does. It's right here. It's this giant arc reactor. You just need to make it smaller. And the guy's like, I can't. And then Obadiah flips out on him. That's one of my favorite moments is when he's like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. Mm-hmm. And the guy goes, well, I'm not Tony Stark.
Right.
That actor, by the way, who says, I'm not Tony Stark and says it's impossible, that's Peter Billingsley. That's Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he shaved his head bald, so he's almost unrecognizable, but Peter Billingsley is good friends with Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. He's a producer on the movie, and so I guess he put himself in the movie as well.
Nice.
I've actually worked with Peter Billingsley a little bit on Sullivan and Son.
Nice.
He directed a few episodes.
He's a legend, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Well, he gets the suit parts from the wreckage that the terrorists gathered for him, and they're able to assemble it. And then why does Tony have Pepper go to the computer database?
I can't remember. But that's when she finds out that Obadiah is behind it all. But Tony doesn't know yet, I don't think.
Right. Well, she, on the way out, like, he comes in and tries to... It's a very suspenseful scene where, I mean, he's like, toying with her, and she's just like, does he know what I'm doing? Because she goes in, she's getting this information about, the suit. She hears a message about the hit. And knows that he, tried to kill Tony Stark and all this evidence. And then he walks in while she's right in the middle of downloading this thing. And so he's like...
He's got a great line. He goes, what are we going to do about this?
Right.
And she's like,
I mean, yeah, I'm sure she... this was mafia feeling,
And what's great about that scene, too, is that I wouldn't be... Obadiah Stan probably knows that she's up to something.
Right.
And so that line has such a great double meaning because he's really kind of asking about what are we going to do about Tony Stark and this whole situation with Tony. But really he's also asking, like, what are we going to do about this now that you are,
I gotcha.
Putting your nose where it doesn't belong.
Right. He's never in your face like, I know what's going on. But he does it enough to where if she is doing something, then she's going to show.
Yeah.
But she does, and she does look kind of nervous.
She looks pretty scared at the beginning, I think, actually.
And then he comes around, and she's able to put up the screensaver, and he doesn't see it until she's walking out. But she gets, she puts it on her hard drive, and she got that too. So she's getting out of the building with this evidence, and then the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent guy's down there in the lobby.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even talked about Agent Coulson, played by Clark Gregg.
Right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You can finish, and then we can talk about it.
I was just going to say that was when...
That's pretty much the beginning of Act 3. The beginning of the final act where she knows he's up to something. He knows that she knows, which in turn Tony's going to know very shortly. Mm-hmm. So he goes straight to his new factory or wherever it is. I guess it's like above... Or it's part of the arc reactor building. But that's where he's building his new suit, and he's getting it ready. But what I wanted to say about Agent Coulson is I thought Agent Coulson's a lot of fun, and I don't think I appreciated him as much until seeing him in the Avengers. But when he first shows up, he says that he's part of the Strategic Homeland, Intelligence or Intervention or whatever it is. He gives the whole big name.
Right.
And it did not occur to me when I first watched this movie that was S.H.I.E.L.D. until the very end when she's like, the strategic, and he goes, just call us S.H.I.E.L.D. And I was like, oh!
Right.
like it clicked, and I thought it was really cool. Because, again, I didn't read a whole lot of Iron Man or even S.H.I.E.L.D. comics or anything, but I knew who S.H.I.E.L.D. was. I knew who Nick Fury was.
Right.
So...
You did...
Because they're peppered throughout all Marvel comics, you know?
Did you ever notice, or did you notice the first time Captain America S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I don't think I noticed it in the theater until I saw something on the internet about it later.
I gotcha. I actually noticed it, and I typically don't notice Easter eggs ever. Right. And this one stood out to me, so I saw that and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
You knew what it was immediately? Because it's only like it's like a partial shield.
Yeah, but I mean... It's a Captain America shield. You have a giant blue stripe, a giant red one, and part of a white star. It's a pretty recognizable shield.
And that was cool because it was another little nod at like them being like, we're gonna kind of try to tie these movies together,
right? Well, not even then.
But now that they've tied those movies together, it doesn't make any sense to why that shield would be there, unless they're trying to rebuild the shield.
You know, what if didn't his dad have something to do with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember what his dad's first name was, but Mr. Stark is in Captain America.
Right, so maybe...
But Captain America is frozen with his shield.
Right.
So unless they're trying to duplicate it. But there was only... They say in Captain America that the shield, which is made of vibranium, this is the only vibranium that is in the world is in this shield. Like, the only vibranium that exists on the planet Earth is the Captain America shield.
I gotcha.
So unless they're just trying to replicate it, I don't think that is the actual Captain America shield.
I gotcha. Well, regardless, you see it, assume it is.
It's still cool.
And it was awesome, yeah. So, and it was kind of sweet for me to be able to see it, because I never, like I said, I never pick up on that stuff, so.
Right.
The first time you see Obadiah in the suit, well, first of all, they didn't, what did they go into with that meeting? Because...
Which meeting?
The general, or is he a colonel? What's his name?
Rhodes? Rhodey?
Coulson. Sorry, Agent
Coulson. Yeah.
He was waiting there for Pepper.
Right.
So I'm trying to remember what they discussed when they finally got together.
I don't think they discussed anything. She just took him straight
That's
to
right.
Obadiah's little lair where he was building the suit.
Okay, so she's saying, you need to see this. Forget whatever you wanted to talk about before. I need to show you this. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think the reason he was there in the first place was because he wanted to talk to Pepper and Tony about Tony's escape from the cave.
Okay.
And everybody just kept putting it off. Every time they ran into Coulson, they were like, yeah, we'll do this later. We'll do this later. Yeah. So they never actually ever had that meeting.
Okay. So, but anyway, she felt it was important enough, she just found this information, so she wants to take Agent Coulson to see this. Is that correct? Okay. So they're there, and then you see the suit. And for a second there, it didn't make sense to me. Like she said, I thought it would be bigger.
Right.
And I was like...
Well, it's because they see the recreation of the Mark I scraps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At first I was like, what? Why would she say that? But then, I remember that she saw the charts. And she's a smart character.
Yeah, she saw the blueprints, right.
She's a smart girl, does all of Tony Stark's work, everything,
Right, pretty much.
Or at least the number stuff. So Jeff Bridges comes out, or Obadiah comes out in the suit, and this was one of the hardest things for me to digest, as much as I love this movie, is how did he become such a master at piloting this suit when, so quickly?
Yeah, it's something you just kind of have to go with, I think, because unless he's there every afternoon testing it out, which they really make it seem like this is the first time he's ever gotten in the suit.
Right.
The way he's like tinkering when they're like Agent Coulson picks a lock with like an explosive, and he's sitting at his computer and he hears the noise and it seems like he's kind of going faster. It really makes it seem like this is the first time he's ever stepped inside the suit. So he just, it's just something you guys, I guess you have to suspend your belief on it and just go with it. But you're absolutely right. Especially with how we've been shown how Tony had to practice a lot on how to even just fly. Even just kind of be stable in those boots and everything. Like, yeah, it would be very. It wouldn't. Iron Man would have defeated him very quickly had it gone that way. But I actually really like the. I really like the production design of that little lair with the hanging chains and everything, and when his eyes like the lights come on, and he rises above Pepper. I think that scene is really fun.
It's crazy because that scene had never stood out to me before, but this time it did. I saw the chains and I was like, it's really interesting. It's let's just hang chains from a ceiling. Kind of took me back to a 90s movie almost had like a Terminator feel to it.
Right.
It's kind of the set design that you'd see in a classic Terminator movie. But and then I wasn't even expecting the eyes because it's been a while since I'd seen this. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's creepy. That was some good cinematography right there.
It's one of my favorite shots, from the movie, definitely. And then there's right after that though, it goes into one of my least favorite moments, which is Pepper running, and then it chases her, or Obadiah chases her, and if he takes one or two steps and they're pretty slow, and then all of a sudden he's right behind her. He moves very quickly.
I gotcha. I didn't pick up on that.
And it's just a weird bit of timing. It was like because of his. I think maybe they put Gwyneth Paltrow in heels, and she couldn't run very fast in heels, and so they had to do this weird thing where because of his enormous size, and in order for him to not catch up with her, he has to kind of get distracted by the agents and then jump to her, and it's a weird space thing that doesn't really make sense to me, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it goes into the final battle, if you will, between Iron Man and Ironmonger. And this actually is funny coming off of the last episode with Spider-Man, because this is another example, I think, of, I say small scale, and I don't mean that in the sense of low budget. This is obviously a big budget movie, and there's explosions in this battle scene and everything, but it's just the whole point of this scene is Obadiah wants to kill Tony. There's no, I'm going to take over the city and blow up the city. It's just another two characters who are fighting each other, and it's all about them.
Right.
And I didn't think of this. I didn't think of Iron Man as an example last week when we were trying to think of kind of these smaller scale movies, but Iron Man is an example of it, because Obadiah really has no plans at the end of the film other than killing Tony Stark. And so the only reason that people are kind of in danger near the end of the film is because the fight goes out into the street and goes out into kind of public. But I don't think Obadiah in that moment has any plans to destroy the city or anything.
Right. No, I would think he wouldn't, because he wants the company. He wants the money. And
chances are he would end up selling the suit to the military or to whoever, and he would make millions of dollars off that giant weaponized suit. What did you think of them lowering Jeff Bridges' voice when he's in the suit? I don't know if you noticed that or picked up on that, but Robert Downey Jr. sounds the same when he's in the Iron Man suit. It just kind of maybe has a little bit of a sound like it's coming through a radio or something, maybe kind of. But with Jeff Bridges, they lowered his, so when he talked, he was like this. It was
I thought that Iron Man's voice was very robotic.
But it still sounds like Robert Downey Jr., right?
I didn't think so.
Oh, well.
I thought it was really cool sounding, though. And I thought Jeff Bridges' voice sounded more like his. I thought his sounded more. I mean, maybe Robert Downey Jr.'s voice seems to be a little bit higher, especially in this movie, than I guess I was expecting.
Okay.
So maybe I don't have his voice down in my head, and when I heard him talking as Iron Man, it just didn't register that it sounded like him. So maybe it did sound like him, but to me it sounded almost like a RoboCop or, you know, more the what I think the RoboCop that we've heard in the new trailers.
Right.
It's got that very...
Well, they give it like a metallic... Yeah, they give it like a kind of a metallic tinge to it or something. I don't know how you would say that, but
I felt like Iron Man almost was like, just like you said, radio static with just a metallic sound. I didn't even pick up on a Tony Stark.
Oh, well, to me it sounds just like
or
Robert Downey Jr. Just with like a couple effects on it. But with Obadiah, they definitely lowered the pitch of his voice.
I gotcha. Well, I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Did the character that Obadiah played as the machine, did that character have a name?
Ironmonger, I believe.
Was it Ironmonger? Okay.
Yeah.
The battle doesn't really stand out to me that much.
It's also shorter than I remembered it.
Right.
This time around, it like does not last very long.
But I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But and this is why, like, I typically like a longer battle scene, especially when they're really good. And this was shorter, and it almost felt a little bit pushy to me. It's hard to explain. Like, it's a great movie. I felt like the battle scene was one of its weaker points.
Like
the
final battle.
Yeah, like it was like, well, we're a superhero movie. We have to put this in here.
Right.
And that's, I think, one of the things that made Iron Man so unique and good, too, was, like we mentioned in the beginning, it's got a great story. Mm-hmm. It focuses on the story. And, you know, yeah, I agree, you needed some action in it, but it felt a little bit...
Forced?
A little bit Hollywood, that scene. Just a little bit. It could have been a lot worse. You know, that we've seen overly Hollywood, like Transformers, and I don't know why. Because I remember seeing the trailers for Transformers 3, and I was stoked about that movie.
I guess when you say it's Hollywood, are you thinking like more style over substance? Is that what you mean by that?
That's part of it, but there's more to it. Like, it felt like it was taken off a list, like just maybe like a notebook of ideas they'd had in the past, and they're like, well, we need a battle scene for Iron Man. Go through what we haven't used yet, you know, the ones that were set aside, and let's use this one.
Okay.
It just, but it was fine because you had, you have an overdrawn battle scene like that, and you might get the reaction that a lot of people had for Man of Steel, about the battle scene being too long. And
right.
You didn't need a long battle scene for Iron Man. So, and like I said, I'm babbling now, but it could have been a lot worse than it was. It wasn't bad, but I felt like it was needed in the movie. So it
just wasn't as good as you were hoping it would be.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really didn't have any expectations because I had never seen Iron Man fight before,
right?
In live action, but for me, the battle was forgettable compared to just the story moments of this movie. Mm-hmm. Is basically what it gets down to.
I gotcha.
I definitely give them credit to the sound effects because the metal on metal and just the pow and the bass of those hits was awesome. So I definitely give them that. And it could have been a problem for me with the villain, like the suit. Mm-hmm. I get that, it was supposed to be a better rendition of the Mark I.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of bland. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I also wonder about, not having read Iron Man comics, how good his, gallery of villains are. True. I know you got the Mandarin, which is supposedly like the Joker to his Batman, but I don't know if Ironmonger, I'm assuming Ironmonger is in the comics, and I'm assuming Whiplash from the second movie is in the comics. But it seems like every villain, other than the Mandarin, that we've seen so far in the movies, well, I guess maybe just more so in 1 and 2, the villains are always trying to build a suit, trying to build an iron or a metal suit like Iron Man to fight him. So it makes me wonder if a lot of the villains in Iron Man also kind of have these metal suits or something.
Right. Well, I mean, and you're bringing that into the second Avengers.
With Ultron?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Ultron wasn't originally an Iron Man villain, was he? I know he was created by... In the comics, he was created by Ant-Man. He was created by Hank Pym.
Right. But wasn't he like... I thought he was like an Avengers villain, too.
I think he is, yes.
So... No, so he had nothing to do with Tony Stark?
As far as I know. I think they're going that route with it in the Avengers, too. I think it's going to be something to do with Tony Stark. Is how Ultron came about in the movie, but in the comics, I don't think that's how it was.
Yeah. Okay.
I could be wrong. What would you grade it?
Well, I've been thinking about changing my rating scale. Did I say this last time?
I don't remember.
I don't either, so I'll say it again.
Okay.
I'm going from 10 stars, the 10-star scale to 5 stars.
Okay.
But I'm going to do halves. With that.
4.5 stars, 3.5 stars type thing?
Right.
Okay.
For some reason, I know it's the same system, but it just feels different to me. I think it's Netflix's fault. No, it's Flixster. Flixster, because they let you do the half star.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So I give Iron Man 4 out of 5 stars.
It's funny, because I think I was going to give it, like... maybe a B+, but the more we talked about it, the more I kind of think I really did enjoy this movie, so I'm going to give it an A-.
Nice.
Which I feel like is what I've been giving every movie we've talked about lately, but I swear I'll give something else a different grade later.
Yeah, we've got to touch... we were originally going to do a Hulk episode. And
that
we
would not have gotten an A-.
And we'll get to that, because... I do want to talk about the Hulk. We'll probably maybe closer to the Avengers movie or Avengers 2 release.
We're not doing these in any sort of order. It's just kind of whatever we feel like watching that week. So
right.
We obviously loved Iron Man. We'd like to hear what you think. Let us know at cinemaheroes.com, or you can email us, justin@cinemaheroes.com or john@cinemaheroes.com. You can go to our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or you can tell us on Twitter @CinemaHeroes. And if you're going to make any Amazon.com purchases in the near future, check out CinemaHeroes.com first. Click on our Amazon banner. It doesn't cost you anything, but we get a very small percentage that we can use towards podcasting costs and whatnot, and we would really appreciate it. And we'll even, I don't know, if there's any interest in this, but we can always, we get an order report. It doesn't tell us who orders it, but we see what is purchased, so we can always read that on air if you want. If that is some sort of incentive, to say, hey, somebody bought a laptop, thanks. So there's that. And
yes, the bigger the purchase, make sure you remember that.
Right. If you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars, that would be great
on our website.
But we also get a list of DVDs. If you buy a DVD or a movie or something, we'll see what movie has been purchased, and so
maybe we'll throw in a reward. No promises.
John will mail you a quarter.
Justin's quarter. After he mails it to me.
Still waiting on that one, are you?
I am. I check the mailbox every day, and I haven't seen anything, dude. Have you mailed it yet?
It's on the way. It's on the way.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.